Hello, my name is John Ullman, and this is a pitching evaluation for Lucas Cooper from video taken from the 2023 Titan baseball camp. The goal of this video is to provide potential areas of improvement with Lucas's pitching mechanics to help him move more efficiently on the mound in the hope that he will stay healthy, increase his velocity, and improve overall command of his pitches. I hope you find this information helpful. I'm going to begin by looking at Lucas's pitching delivery at full speed. Okay, when we look at pitching mechanics, there's 5 phases of delivery that we focus on. These phases are hip load, which is how we lift our leg, hip lead, which is how we make our lateral move down the mound, hip separation, which is where we're at a front foot strike, and then release and follow through. Okay, I use Stroman as an example, not because he's a perfect mechanical model or because everyone should throw like him, but this video just does a good job of illustrating some of the concepts that are related to these 5 phases. Now, I'm a huge believer that what we do at the beginning of the delivery with hip load and hip lead has a huge impact on what happens with hip separation, release, and follow through. And so most of my time is spent focusing on what happens with the leg lift and the hip lead, because that's what's going to have those are the upstream causes of what happens later in the delivery. So with this in mind, let's take a look at Lucas's mechanics. So as he goes here into his windup, okay, he goes with his leg lift comes towards his back ear, which is what we're looking for. All right. And then from there, his front foot comes down and he gets to this position right here, and then he leaps off the mound. So Lucas doesn't really get much of a hip load. All right, he lifts, and when we get to this position, what I like to look for is a little bit of a coil over that back hip. You don't have to coil, and we don't necessarily want to over-rotate towards second, but a lot of guys, a lot of hard throwers have a little bit of this coiling action where they, you might hear the old adage of show that back pocket to home plate, all right, where you see that coiling over that back hip during leg lift. Okay, you'll notice Lucas kind of just lifts, and there's really no rotation with those hips, right? He's not really coiling over that back leg, all right? And so he comes back down here, and as you'll notice that as he comes back down, this back knee comes forward, and then he gets this position, and then he jumps. So right here, he's completely airborne. All right, and once we leave the ground, we're not really in control of our body anymore, or it's difficult to be in control of our body. It's really difficult to time up our arm. So if I compare this to Stroman on the left, okay, he coils over that back leg a little bit, and then notice that he sits his butt back, and he rides that position down the mound. So he elevates that front hip just a little bit. Okay, it's coiled and it's elevated, and he rides that position towards home plate, and he stays closed for as long as he can into front foot strike. And his ability to do that creates hip to shoulder separation, which is good. Basically creates a giant stretch in his body that allows him to put more force into the baseball and into his arm. But the only reason he can get to here is because he does a good job of loading here and then riding that position towards home. Okay, if we look at Lucas, okay, perfect. So we look at Lucas, okay, we go here. Okay, we don't really get much of a loading over that back hip. And then we come down, and then we jump forward. Okay, and a couple things you'll notice that as we jump. So first of all, Lucas kind of has this pause with his back hand. So you'll notice that when he separates, his hand comes down, and then it kind of hangs out there. So it's not really moving from this spot right here. See how it just kind of floats? Okay, part of the reason why it does that is because he's trying to keep himself back, right? He's trying to keep his trunk back, kind of like Stroman is here, where he's stacked, in order to use more force from his body or get more weight from his body or mass from his body into the throw. Okay, Lucas is trying to stay back by keeping his arm back there. because he knows that as he jumps forward, his trunk's going to want to open up early and go forward. Okay, so you'll notice that as he goes into front foot strike, his trunk's already open, and so he's not creating any of that stretch or that hip to shoulder separation that we kind of look for as we throw. Okay, so you'll also notice that because he jumps, he opens up pretty significantly, so his front foot necessarily isn't in line to home plate. It doesn't have to be perfectly in line to home plate. Sometimes it can be crossbody a little bit. Sometimes it is open, but he's significantly open, and his trunk is also open. So you'll see that Millard wording is already opening up towards home plate here. Okay, the other thing that I notice with guys that tend to jump like Lucas does right here is they have a hard time getting their arm up on time. And so a lot of times when I see guys do this, they miss up a lot, or they miss down into their glove side because their arm is unable to be timed up correctly. Okay, so those are the big things that I see with Lucas. Now, he does get a good job of getting his hips open into front foot strike. So he is able to make up for it a little bit. Okay, this move right here is good. All right, but when I see guys jump like this, a lot of them have a hard time throwing a lot of strikes and throwing with command because of its difficulty of timing up his arm. So if I'm Lucas, I would consider just working on his lower half here a little bit in the hopes that it might make him a little bit more consistent on the mound. And maybe he is consistent. I'm not really sure this is just one pitch. But again, these are just things that I notice by looking at these videos. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to reach out. I do give some off-season instruction, and you have my contact information. And like I said, I'm an open book when it comes to this stuff, and I really enjoy talking about it. So if you have any questions, don't hesitate to reach out. Go Titans.